In this lesson, you're going to be introduced to Adobe Animate, which is animation software. To begin, we're going to go into our Adobe Creative Cloud, and it's important that you make sure that this is signed in as a 305 Tech account and not your school Google account or a personal Google account. And we're going to come down and we're looking for Animate. And you may have to install it first, where mine is ready to open because I've used it before. If you don't see this in the original list, you may need to look down here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit open. I think this is a very amusing graphic. I like it. And the first thing that you're going to see on your screen is it's going to ask you if you're new to Animate. Because I've already bypassed this screen when I've used Animate before, I don't have that option. Although that you are probably new to Animate, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and click no because we don't need to watch the video. We're going to cover some of the basics together today. So once you're past that screen, your screen, you might have a horse, you might have a girl with a kite, you might have sea creatures, and you're going to have a couple different options. We have different options. We can create a new document, we can open files up, we can learn. We have different options here, but we're going to go ahead and we are going to choose Create New. And of course, Adobe products do have similar features. So this will have similar features to Illustrator, which you've used in the past, Photoshop, and Premiere. We want to navigate over to the Advanced window, and we're going to be working with ActionScript 3. And for this first project, the introduction, I would like you to set your width to 600 and your height to 300. And we are going to be working in pixels and a frame rate of 24. And we can go ahead and click Create. And I'm now going to show you how you can play with your preferences. And some people prefer a light background, some people prefer a dark background. The choice is up to you. The choice is yours. But I want to show you how you can change that. Edit, Preferences, Edit Preferences. And under the UI theme is where you can change the settings. I recommend either the dark or the light. So now we're going to talk about just some of the various panels that we have on here. So this is a panel area. This has our properties, our libraries, and our assets. So you can see there are some pre-made objects in our assets. We haven't put anything in our library. These are our document settings. This is our timeline. Each of these individual rectangles is referred to as a frame. This is the playhead. So some of this is going to relate back a little to Premiere. Once we have an animation, you can scrub along or pull your playhead along. These are your layers, and these are all of your tools. This is your stage. This is your edit symbol, which we'll talk about later. This is where our file name is. This is the current scene that we're working on. This is our menu bar, our edit buttons, our zoom. This gray area is what is known as the pasteboard, and we'll talk about how that comes in to play. So you're going to want to get to know those areas. If you ever are starting a new document and you don't create it to the right size and later you realize you need to change it, you can do that by going to Modify, Document, and you can change the size, the units, the frames, the frame rate. Just something to stick in the back of your head that you may need to know. We do, not only do we have a zoom here, but we do have scroll bars, both vertically and horizontally, that we can use. So to get started in animation, we're going to use some of the Animate tools. One in particular that we're going to use is we are going to use the pencil tool. Now, oftentimes in animation, we may not be using the pencil tool because Animate is not necessarily considered a software that we're oftentimes going to be drawing and creating in. It's a software that we will be using for animation. But to get started, we are going to draw our own shapes. And we want to take a look at the pencil tool, and then we're going to take a look at some of the settings within the pencil tool. Now, it's interesting that we're starting with the pencil tool because we don't even have that in our toolbar. You're going to need to click on these three little dots, and you're going to find the pencil tool right here. Right here. And you're going to click and drag that, and you choose where you want to drag it in your toolbar. But for everybody, this is where it's going to be located at here. It's just kind of your choice of where you drag it over here. So you're going to need to know where that ends up. But as other Adobe products, if we leave the tool highlighted, it will show us what the name of the tool is. Now, when we're drawing on the stage with the pencil tool, at first you're going to notice that it is a bit shaky, and in a second we're going to talk about these modes. Your default should be straighten, and that's what we're going to start out with. What I would like you to do is I would like you to draw a circle, a square, a rectangle, and an oval. And don't worry about being too precise with them, but do not let them overlap. If you do mess up, you can use Control Z or Edit Undo, and I will also show you where the eraser tool is so you can erase everything that's on your stage. So here's my circle. So my circle was so terrible that it thought I wanted a rectangle. So I'm going to Control Z and try that again. And you can see, even though my circle was very shaky, it made it correct for me. Now I'm going to do my square, my rectangle, and an oval. And if you decide you want to erase everything on your stage, this is your eraser tool, and if you double click, it's going to erase everything. If I only have it selected, I can come over, and the eraser tool is very interesting in this program. You can see that it's erasing parts. So I'm gonna, if I truly wanted to delete a shape, I would need to click on it and use the delete key on my toolbar. Or if I wanted to, let's say, move all these over, I used my selection tool, and then I'm using the arrows on my keyboard. And now I'm going to use my pencil tool again, and you know that's supposed to be an oval. And there we go. Now, there are different options in terms of the pencil tool, and that you can kind of get some that are more free form, you know, because maybe you don't always want everything to have this style. So I'm going to use the straight style to draw a triangle, and then I'm going to use smooth, and you can see there's some difference, and then ink. So if I go back to straight, It's all about kind of your accuracy from the beginning. So if you wanted a perfect triangle, we'll talk later about how you're going to create that. Thus far, we've talked about the pencil tool, about our tools in general, our panels, the eraser tool. Now we're going to talk about the shape tools. So I'm going to open this up and I want you to use a rectangle first, and we are going to talk about how to set it to, I would like you to use an oval first, and we are going to talk about setting it to certain colors. So just like our other Adobe programs, we have a fill color and we have a stroke color. I would like you to turn your fill to red and your stroke to black. And over here we can change our stroke size. I want you to make it a 5. So it's going to be a little thicker. And make a circle. And then I would like you to hold this down and go to a rectangle. Now there is a difference between the rectangle and the rectangle primitive tool, so make sure you're only choosing the rectangle tool. And I would like you to change your fill to yellow and your stroke to blue. And make a square. And now we are going to talk about the selection tool. So this is your selection tool, and this is what I would use if I wanted to, let's say, move the shape. But this is going to work a little different than it worked in our other programs. If I click here and go to move, it's only moving my fill. If I want to move everything that's there, I need to click and drag and select everything. So that would only move that chunk. So that is a big difference with Animate that we'll need to get used to. But what I want to talk about specifically with this selection tool is how the selection tool can be used for editing purposes. So pay close attention to my cursor. Right now it's an arrow. Now it's an arrow with a little arc. And I can click and drag and change the shape. So now it's an arrow with an angle symbol, so I can change this point, or if it's an arc, I could pull it in this way. So I want you to kind of experiment with, editing your shape. And now we're going to go back to looking at getting a triangle. So we're familiar with the pen tool from our other programs. So we have the pen tool, we have our fill color and our stroke color. I want you to set everything back to default. So if we click right here, we're going to get a white fill and a black stroke. And with our pen tool, we're going to make our triangle. And now we are actually going to use the paint bucket, and we're going to set our fill to green. And we are going to use our paint bucket and just our regular paint bucket tool. And we're going to click in here, and now it has filled that shape. So you can see there are multiple ways for us to get various shapes and different ways that we can edit those various shapes. Even though I use my pen tool, I can still pull the side to shape it. And this is where we're going to stop for our intro lesson. And to turn your assignment in, I would like you to take a screenshot or a snip of the shapes that you have created today. And you are going to copy this, and from your Google Classroom, there in the assignment, there's an Animate Lesson 1 slide, and you're simply going to paste your document, paste your image in there, and that's what you're turning in for today's assignment. I would like you to use the pencil tool here, try it here with the different settings in a triangle, and then here I am asking that you use the same color and the stroke of a size 5. Good luck and have fun, and please make sure you're asking questions.